everybody, Raphael here at Taming the Orchid. Today I'm going to do a video and show you how to start off and get your bare root orchid plants off to a great start before actually potting them up. And this is a very crucial step because I never pot orchids up when they are not producing new roots. So it's always very crucial to pot up your plants when they are putting out a flush of new roots. That way they get established very quickly, because if you don't, they will languish and often you will experience a great setback in your plants and they will just kind of sit around for a while not doing anything. So this is what I've come up with over the years. I have all these plants here that are recent new additions, which are all bare root. And I'll just grab one of them here. This one I just got about a week ago. And the first thing you want to do is you want to pop them out of their pots. You want to just knock them out of their pots right away. You want to do this because you want to ensure that there's no pests, that the medium's not rotting, there's no fungal stuff going on. You just want to get them out of there right away just to inspect and be sure. This is something that I always do. So I just knock them out. I give them a good water first and then I knock them out because it's easier to release the medium when the roots and the medium are wet. So I give them a good soak first and then I knock them out of the pot. And these came right before I went on vacation. I just came back from vacation. So I've had these about 1 week. And I just knocked them out. They were in a bark mix. The bark mix was very moldy and breaking down. It was disgusting. So I quickly removed all of that. And then I inspected the roots and I sprayed them with hydrogen peroxide. So I just take pure hydrogen peroxide, add a little bit of water, I put it in like one of these spray bottles here, and then I just spray it, and I also rinsed under the sink. But you want to be sure that you're doing the hydrogen peroxide is the last thing, because that'll just kill off any fungal or anything like that. So these have been drying off from the hydrogen peroxide for about a week now. I've just, because I was on vacation, or else I would have done it earlier. Here they are. And so we have all these other ones too that I need to do here. So this is going to be a really good process for sympodial orchids, which are orchids with pseudobulbs, which I'm talking about cattleyas, encellias, cymbidiums, etc. And also really good for monopodial orchids, which are phalaenopsis and mendacious orchids and some other ones, because those orchids don't have any water storage organs, so they are more susceptible to fatigue and setback. So you want to make sure that you get them off to a really good start before you pot those up. So this is especially good for orchids, which I see a lot of phalaenopsis coming in very decorative containers. And so when florists or big box stores sell often phalaenopsis and other orchids too, like dendrobiums, but I see this most often with phalaenopsis, is they will come in a decorative container, which is not really conducive to long-term growth and flourishing of the plant. It's more to sell the product. But a lot of people don't understand that, and they sort of try to keep it in that decorative container, whether it's like a glass container with a lid and it's very small for the plant. The plants would suffocate, and so in the long term you should really be taking your plant out of there, inspecting the roots first and foremost, and letting it dry out and dousing it with hydrogen peroxide, and then we'll just take you to the next step now. So watch the video. I hope this works for you. This really works well for me. I have a really great success rate with this, 100% success rate, and this will get your plants off to a good start. So let's go. Okay, so the first step, actually the second step after you've sort of cleaned up and unpotted your orchids and removed all the old medium and washed it off and allowed it to dry out overnight, is you want to give them a good soak. And this is how I soak my bare root orchids, and I get them going really well with this. So I have a container that's specifically for this, and I do all of them together. All my plants are really clean and healthy, so I can go ahead and just do them together. They have no diseases or anything, so nothing's going to transmit to one orchid to another. If you have a plant that's unhealthy, or it's recuperating from sort of disease or insect infestation, then I would recommend that you don't soak it with the other plants, that you would do it in a separate container from the other plants. So the first thing I do is I take some pure water. This is rainwater. And I basically give some of it a little bit of a boil, and I use cholla wood, but you want to use anything that has tannins in it. So you can use a tea bag also, a black tea bag, no flavorings, just pure black tea. And you want to warm up the water enough so that you can, with the cholla wood I actually boil it a little bit, and you want to release all the tannins, because wood has tannins, right? And with the tea, if you just warm up the water with the tea, you just want to dunk the tea a few times, and you want it to come out to a really nice light color like this, no more than this color, right? So because orchids in the wild, the majority of them are epiphytes, and they attach themselves to tree, and so the orchids attach themselves to trees, and when it rains, the rainwater washes down tannins all over the roots, and the orchids really like that. And I think I found that it's a really great thing to stimulate new root growth, and it works phenomenally. So here's the water with a little bit of tea in it, or cholla wood. You can use another piece of wood if you want, as long as it's untreated. You want to give it a little bit of a boil until you get some of those tannins released. That's what that color is there. So you've got that, and you want to be sure that the water that you're using to soak the plants in is conducive to the type of orchids that you have. These are all warm growing orchids, so I want my water to be tepid and barely warm. I don't want it to be hot, and I don't want it to be cold, but I also don't want it to be really warm. So I want it to be tepid and a nice temperature, because I think that the orchids really like that, especially if they're warm growing orchids. If you are growing cool or cold growing orchids like Masdevallias, Draculas, and certain Encyclias, etc., etc., you do not need to warm up the water, because it's irrelevant, because they're cool, cold growing orchids, so they respond more to cool, cold growing conditions. So you can just keep the water cold. But if you want to, you can just do the tea in some warm water first, because it's easier to release the tannins that way, and then you can just top it up with really cold water, and that'll be fine. So this is warmish, and then I'm just going to top the rest of this up. I'm actually going to put in first fresh lemon. I'm going to put in about 5 drops of fresh lemon. This is going to be a total of a half a gallon of water here. So I'm going to do 5 drops. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so no more than 5 drops, okay? Because less is always more with orchids. And then what I want to do is I want to use a rooting hormone, and I use KLN, which I've talked about in my other videos. Kelp Max I've heard is really phenomenal also. I happen to have KLN. This is really fresh. With rooting hormones, you also want to be sure that it's very, very fresh, because sometimes the manufacturer has it sitting around for a while, and then the active components in this actually degrade, and it's just useless after. But this is really fresh, and I keep this in the fridge. So I just give this a really, 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 really good shake, and then I take my pipette. I just kind of stick that in there, and then I do 10 drops in here. 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. So far we have the water with the tea or the tannins in it, and then we have 5 drops of fresh lemon juice, and then we have about 10 drops of rooting hormone, whatever you want to use. Kelp Max, KLN is fine. And then we're just going to top this up to half a gallon. I know where half a gallon is in this, so I'm just eyeing it. This is rainwater. And I'm just going to put that in there. And that's enough. And you want to give it a swirl around. Feels really good. It doesn't feel cold. It doesn't feel hot. It feels nice and room temperature, which is perfect. So all you're going to do now is you're going to take your bare root plants, like this one here. I'm just going to stick it in there like this. Then I'm going to stick the next one in there like this. You want to aim at just getting the roots in there, right? So, and then I've got... Great. So everything's in there, and I'm just going to now just actually let this sit in there, soak for 1 hour. And I'm just going to set my iPhone. You can see it's 1 hour there. I'm going to start that. And then I'm going to come back in an hour, and we'll go from there. Okay, so the plants have finished soaking. They've been soaking in the solution for an hour now. Here they are, all nice and cozy together. So now I'm just basically going to take them out, and I'm going to put them into this tray here, which I have in my grow tent. It's in a corner that I have that I just keep for all the newbie plants. And this is a place where they are going to dry out overnight and then go on to the next step. So I'm just going to take them out of here. And then all I'm essentially going to do is I want the root systems on these to dry out overnight, because that's how orchids grow, is through a wet and dry cycle. So I also want to maintain somewhat of a humidity, so I'm just going to just loosely cover them over. I'm not going to cover them completely. I'm still going to allow airflow to the roots, but this will just keep them kind of covered up. And then tomorrow morning they will be nice and dried up and ready for the next step. Okay, so now you're ready for the final step. Your plants are dried out. You dried them out overnight, and then you've cleaned off the dead roots, so they're nice and clean. They're dry, they're ready to go, and this is what you need for the final step. You need a 1 gallon Ziploc bag or some kind of bag that can zip up easily along the top. You need some sort of small pot that's going to accommodate the plant so it sits upright. And then you need some wet sphagnum moss, which has been soaked and wringed out so that it's still quite moist but not soppy wet. Just a side note, when you are handling sphagnum moss, always wear gloves, because there's a fungus found in sphagnum moss, which can be found in sphagnum moss, which can be very detrimental to your skin if it comes in contact with your skin, so always wear gloves. Although I will say that the caveat to that is if you get very high quality sphagnum moss, it's really not an issue, but I wear gloves all the time anyway, so that's that. So basically I'm going to start off by just opening this up, like so. Go like that. So the purpose of this is you want to create an environment for the orchids that is very humid but is not soggy. You don't want the orchids to be in contact with any of the moisture whatsoever. You want the ambient humidity to be very high so that it promotes root growth, and then when the roots start to come out, you can actually take it and pot up the plant as you require. First off, I'm going to take these. So I'm going to put 2 plants in this bag because 2 plants can fit, and these are both the same size. Normally I would just put 1 plant in a bag. So they're going to sit in the pots like this, and then we're going to put them in here like so. See that or not? There's the other one. So I'm going to create a little space in between the 2 plants, as you can see. And then I'm going to take my sphagnum moss here, which is right here, if you can see that good. And I am just going to, I've opened up the bag a little bit just to sort of, so that the humidity and the moisture releases itself. And I'm just going to tuck that right in between those 2 pots there. Okay, just in there like that. Make sure these are standing up. And then the next thing that you're going to do, you're just going to take this bag and you're going to start to zip it up almost all the way, about 99% of the way. And you're going to leave a little opening here in the end, right? So you're going to treat this like a balloon, and then you're going to take it and you're basically going to so I basically blew it up like a balloon. And then right as it was blown up, I zipped it up right away. So it's nice and puffy. It's like a little balloon, right? And I find this works really well because when you're exhaling, you are releasing carbon dioxide and water vapor, which the plants love. And the plants in turn take the carbon dioxide and water vapor, and with the sunlight, they turn it into sugar and oxygen, which they use to grow and grow new roots, etc. So here's my little hot air balloon in the grow tent. I put this in a corner that's sort of, you want to put this in a place that's warm and toasty but not hot, and you want to put it in a place where the light is a little bit lower, no direct sun. Again, if you're working with cool growing orchids, you want to put this in a place that's cool, not too much sun, so it depends on the kind of orchid you're growing. These are warm growing orchids, so obviously I have them in the grow tent here. I do have some other plants that I have in a cooler area, which are cool growing orchids. But just also a side note, when you are blowing up the bag and blowing up your little balloon, you want to be sure that your breath is clean. So don't blow it up after you've had, chili dog or chili or something like that. You just want to make sure that you're in between meals and your breath is clean so that you get a nice clean breath in there of a nice carbon dioxide and water vapor. So that's that. So these will just keep going. In a week or so, I will just open this up again, take them out, soak them up, go through the whole process again, dry it out, put them back in the bag, and I'll keep doing this until there's nice roots. This is a really great method. It really promotes root growth really quickly. Some plants take a little bit longer, but in general, I've had a really great success rate with this, and I hope you do too. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.